Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I live in the most beautiful place on earth, which is the Catskill Mountains in the Hudson Valley in upstate New York, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Just walking up the street is a postcard. But one of the disadvantages of that is that I live in the mountains in the Hudson Valley, and so my internet isn't always reliable. It's kind of the reality, and it's something that I deal with, not just here. I do a lot of work with my church, and since COVID, we were live streaming services, and that's something that we deal with every week to bring church to people who can't get there or whatever reason. A lot of elderly and so on, and that is an issue too, where we'll be in the middle of a stream at church and boom, we'll lose service, and it's kind of the deal. It's the cost of living in a place that's gorgeous. I mean, if I lived in the city, wouldn't be a problem. I'd have high-speed 5G on my phone everywhere, let alone on my laptop or and so it's just the reality. So that said, though, thank you for your patience, and we'll see if anybody else pops in as we continue the process. But it happens, so I'm glad that you came back. I reset everything, so I mean, hopefully it'll stay. We've had some weather up here lately that has contributed to this, and so it's been a bit inconsistent the past few days. If I lose you again, email me or something so that we can circle back, and I'll complete it, and I'll we'll either connect on another stream, or I can email you the results, or whatever the case may be. So, because what I'm doing here is basically the mind, body, and soul reading. It's usually $5. It's not a big deal. Since we've done a reading before, I'll be happy to do it. This will give you an idea, though, of what the mind, body, and soul reading entails, what it covers. So, and what these are is, this is the influence of the connection to your mind, and how your mind affects that connection. Same thing here, but with the body. And that also includes your physical world and your physical body, the physical connection, the part of the relationship that manifests physically. And here is the spiritual part of that relationship. Okay. Now, if there isn't a particular person in mind, then it's a different kind of vibe than if we're looking at a couple, right? So if I had a certain couple to look at, it's different than a general situation of looking at you karmically with respect to, oh, Artie, I'm glad to see you, we're back in. And I'm not sure how I'm going to wind up adjusting this list, right? Like, Leia hasn't been around, Sarita either, and so I may just pop Artie next after AJ if she comes back in. So let's just do that, okay? And if AJ doesn't come back in, Artie, you'll be next. So what we're going to be looking at is that, okay, Andrea? It's an idea of looking at where are you coming from here, mentally, physically, and emotionally. And then we'll look at, after that, a card or two, depending upon what's necessary, to look at an actionable answer. What should you do next? Like, enough these readings typically can be insightful, but can lack that last little, what am I supposed to do next? And so that's the final card that I'm going to pull, is that answer. So first, we're looking at the mind. And what this card represents is where are you coming from mentally? How are you affected? How are you affecting love, your connections with people? And more importantly, too, and we'll get to that here, is the desire part of your, but this is what you're thinking. What you see here is justice, balance, even. There's a couple of things that this means in respect to the mental side of here. The first thing, and I love this card. This card's great the way she painted this. Justice is typically seen as a woman sitting in a chair with scales and a sword, right? The sword is pointed straight up, and the scales are dead even. And now here we just see the face. But if you look very, very closely in the iris of her eye, you'll see the scales, right? You see them in there? And now this means one of two things, right? This means either A, you're the kind of person that sees justice in the world, meaning that you kind of can see both sides. You look for balance. You look for fairness, justice. The other side of that, though, would be the action of that, because this is in the mental state. And so what we're talking about is that you're very easily able to notice injustice. It's clear to you mentally. Now, what does this have to do with Lavena? Hello, thank you for popping in. What does it have to do with love? It has to do with the idea that I would say that the way that you communicate with the world and the way that you see the world is in this, I hasten to use the word rigid, but it's not a bad word. It's the idea of the way things are supposed to be. And so when you're looking for somebody that might be a potential suitor, I think what you should definitely strive for is somebody who shares your convictions, that share your beliefs, that you have a similar code of ethic that you live by. And mentally, that I think is something that you, even if it's subconscious, insist upon. And that's not a bad thing. Thanks for coming in. Hi. Now, the next card is the body. What we're talking about here is what is the your physical affect in the situation here. How you connect. Good to see you. I'm glad that you popped in. It also can refer to physical manifestations in your life at the moment, like things that are in the world, things that you actually obtain. This is mental. So it doesn't refer to physical things in the world. It refers to how you approach them, how you communicate. This refers to your body, your physical state. We have the King of Cups. The King of Cups is a very... you are affected physically by your emotions. You are very strong, but oppositely not. It's kind of like... All right, here's the analogy of the King of Cup. And if you're not familiar at all with Star Trek, then this may be a hard analogy, but just go with me for a minute. And if it doesn't work for you, then I'll find a different way to say it. There's a trope in Star Trek about Spock. Spock is this super logical being, right, that never displays any emotions. And they joke all the time about the Vulcans, right, because they don't feel. They're these like super smart beings like humans that have kind of pointy ears, right, whatever, but they don't feel, they just think. And it turns out that that's not true. It turns out that the Vulcan race has higher emotion than humans. It's more intense, in fact, and it's so intense that they're psychic, right? That's where they get the abilities that Spock has. And yet, so what they do is that they are forced to develop this block in order to not be overcome. And so when you see a Vulcan walking around cold and purely logical, it's because if you open that box, they would be uncontrollable. And so that's the idea of the King of Cup here. In control, high emotional IQ, very intuitive as an empath, but not necessarily selective about that. But now here's the deal. There's also this sense of there being like an uncontrollable emotion that potentially you're able to navigate, at least outwardly, and you find more pleasure in when you are put in the position of having to be an emotional stability for somebody else, but not always with yourself when you're alone, right? But now the key here, because it's falling in the body section, is that you are physically affected by your emotions. And so if you're finding certain ailments or certain things that you're dealing with physically, certain parts of yourself that aren't healthy, you have to consider the source of that. And it's not just a matter of emotions controlling you physically, it's a matter of what is the source of that pain. Because if we can heal the emotional scar, the body will follow, and you will not have this sort of up and down physically that you've been dealing with. It can also manifest as anxiety. And anxiety is a very specific term, which includes elevated breath, an elicited fight or flight adrenaline response that's not necessary, like you're standing in line at the grocery store and suddenly you feel panic. There's a lot of things that come with that, and that can be corrected, and sometimes very easily just by understanding the source of it, right? Now, this card is different. This is the soul card. This card refers to where you're coming from, how you approach the world from the respect of your desire, from the respect of the fuel of your life. Like your soul talks first, and then your body responds. And so this question is about your soul, how you interact and how you seek love from a spiritual perspective. Oh. That's insightful. This is the Two of Sword. The Two of Sword is a card of... let me make sure I was in the right thing here. Let me zoom back in. There we go. The Two of Sword is a card here of... You've seen it in the Rider-Waite of a person sitting blindfolded, holding two swords, crossed across them. And it's the idea, don't forget, that the sword is mental energy. And so it's the idea of holding two ideas while not owning either of them, right? Like you can think two things at once and you don't actually believe either. You're able to process that. Kind of like take an idea and not own it, so you can have an argument. You can sit at debate and debate either side. Hi Street, hello, thank you for popping in. So, and her depiction of that's actually quite beautiful, right? Because look, you choose which mask to wear, but you don't actually. You are neither, right? You can wear this mask when needed or that mask, but in actuality, you're neither. And so it's the idea of holding two thoughts without identifying with either. And so now in the soul position, this means a few things. The first thing that it means is that there is an understanding that your identity is not necessarily solid. It's movable. It changes, which is actually real. That's reality. The reality is that our identities, a lot of which that we will sit and defend in our own minds our entire lives, aren't real. Our identity is decided by us every moment. It's chosen that we continue to persist with an identity we think we have, or that we identify with something else because we've changed our minds through evidence, through experience, through doing spiritual work, whatever the case. So what we have here in the spiritual side, with respect to love, because that's the question here, it's not just spirit, it's spirit with respect to love, is that you are really eager to please, meaning that you want to be liked and you can change based on what you think they want. Now that's not good, because let's talk about that. You attract what you put out. If you put out a certain energy, you're going to attract what likes that energy. And that if you're putting out something that's inauthentic in order to be liked, you're going to attract people that like the fake thing. And that's not sustainable. You will not be fulfilled. You may win, meaning you got the guy you wanted, but you won't be happy with him because you're not what he wants. And now you have two options. Disappoint him, resentment builds, and the relationship ends because you're not what he wanted. Or you give him what he wants, unfulfilled, for as long as you can until it ends because you're not happy, resentment builds, and you leave. Or he leaves because your motivation's gone because you're tired of faking it. Anyway, either way, it's bad, right? And so it's really ultimately incumbent upon us, for our own sake, that we are as authentic as possible when we're in the process of seeking love, because it's important that we put out the correct thing so that we attract what's actually going to make us happy. Now, there's a caveat to that. Sex. There's oftentimes circumstances where we're in like an empty place and we need to be fulfilled in some fashion, whether that's to have an identity that we want people to associate with and to agree with, or we want to feel empowered. And so sometimes we'll develop relationships that don't have any actual end game. It's more about the immediate satisfaction, and those don't work. It's almost like that's practice when you're young, but when you actually get past that and realize what love is, that never works, and it just turns into resentment across the board, emotional instability, lack of fulfillment. And so, but what we're looking at here, when I see this whole thing together for you, is the idea that there's some work that needs to be done here. And it's not some kind of super bad thing, but it has held you back, and it's holding your development back. The reality is that a lot of what's dealing here in the King of Cups is by virtue of things you're holding that you need to let go of, and you could let go of. For instance, the fear, which is the reason that you are choosing to put masks on instead of just showing yourself. It wouldn't hurt for you to locate and discover what that is. Like, what is the thing you're afraid of? I think that, there's a couple of circumstances in our lives where those personality quirks develop, and they're actually not hard to identify. It takes a little conversation about certain periods of time and events in your life, but what we wind up doing is getting at the core of what happened, what actually happened that developed in your mind at the time as you were growing a certain personality trait. And I'm going to give you one example. 2nd grade, my parents were not the most responsible people for different reasons. But that said, though, in 2nd grade, during a standardized test, I showed up very late for the test. Out of my control. I had nothing to do with it. I was just a kid. And the test was rigidly timed, and the teacher did not show any flexibility with respect to the fact that I was late and it wasn't my fault, and I did not complete the test. I didn't have time to. I showed up an hour late to an hour and a half exam, and so I did not have the time to finish, and I got a 29 percentile in reading in 2nd grade. Now, I want to be clear, and I'm not patting myself on the back. My IQ is pretty high, and when I was young, after this occurrence happened, I was sat down at a testing facility with a therapist, and was IQ tested multiple times because the scores on the first one were off the chart, and they said, okay, well, he cheated. That was fun. That's a different story. Anyway, long story short, a personality quirk was born in me to cope with that. Because of that percentile, my 3rd grade was getting beat up every day because I was a tiny kid. I'm still small. I'm 5'7". I'm a tiny kid in a room full of bullies, in a class I didn't belong in because I had failed this test, and it affected my scores, and it put me in a class that was well below my capability, but it didn't matter. It was the 70s, right? So long story short, though, I developed a personality quirk, and that quirk was to make sure that every single person I ever met would leave that meeting thinking, wow, that guy's pretty smart. The way I talk, my manner, my affect, the choice of my words, all of that has been developed over time as a coping mechanism for this one instance where I was considered to be less intelligent than I thought I was because I was late to an exam. So now, having the conversation and getting to the core of what it was that occurred in your life that began to develop and build these anxieties, and also the coping mechanism that develops actual personality quirks. The funny thing is that it works for you, so it's not a negative. It works for me that I come off intelligent because it's allowed me to kind of assume a position of leadership in a room full of academics, or to be accepted in a conversation that's probably over my head, but I can at least navigate enough to garner mutual respect. There's things that it's benefited me in my life, that quirk. And it also has hurt me in some cases where I've been looked at as a know-it-all or somebody that needs to just shut up, as a negative. So that said, doing that work would be beneficial to you to kind of get at the core of why you feel like you need to wear the masks, because you don't. You do not need to wear them. You choose to because they work for you. But what winds up happening if you put down this whole costume you've built up is that you begin to cast your own light. Therefore, you're going to attract the people that like you. I hope that was insightful. I don't know if that made sense with respect to your individual question about love, but this is good news because it tells us where we are and where we need to move. Now, I'm going to pull a final card, which is the action card. This is the card of what should you do next? What's your next step? Because right now, karmically, if you do nothing, there's a trajectory, there's a vector, there's a direction you're moving in. If you were to do nothing, that's going to result in some result. But now we know what you want. You want connection and you want it to be fulfilling. And so the question here is what should you do next to facilitate that fulfillment so that the next connection you have is the right one? Okay, so what should she do next is what we're going to ask. And the card is interesting. The Three of Swords. This is one of the most iconic images in the tarot. The Three of Swords is the card of well, before I say that, let's look at the image, because everybody's going to go, oh my gosh. The Three of Swords is... It's a card, it's like a scary card, because it almost feels like total ultimate betrayal, right? Like three swords stuck in a heart. You asked a love question, and you got three swords stuck in a heart. It's like, oh. There's a few things to remember about that. The swords represent the mind, not the heart. These are mental wounds, not emotional. This is not the result of a love hurting you, but you have been hurt, and this recognizes that wound. And so mental pain has caused you emotional pain. Each sword is an event in your past that you are holding on to. Meaning that you have to go through the steps of removing them. Pull them out so that you can begin to heal. Now, I don't like the word heal, because healing implies the past. Take this thing that's not what it used to be and make it what it used to be. That doesn't always work, and sometimes the damage is so much that that's actually impossible. But that's okay, because what we should rather do anyway is to let it be what it's going to be. Let it become something else instead of what it used to be. And the lesson in the three is to let go of those past pains. Now, I know that's not easy. It's easy said, especially that I'm here and you're there. But I've been through my fair share of having to let go of stuff. And I can tell you, as hard as it seems, the reward is priceless, because you gain yourself. Part of what I do on this channel, and why I'm doing what I do, even for decades, why I've done this, is I've noticed that a lot of us walk around thinking we know who we are, and we're wrong. Our identities are not ourselves. And so my goal is to, it sounds lofty, but it's true, to introduce you to yourself, right? And the way to do that is to go through some work. Now, the action card here is to let go of the swords, to recognize that those are mental forms that you are giving energy to. You're allowing them to persist. And that's okay. Now, this isn't like you're doing it to yourself. This is more a matter of recognizing that this is what's happening and moving forward. Now, let's look at her depiction, because we saw the one that everybody knows, right? The three swords in the heart. She changed the meaning here. Right? So what do we have? We see the 3 swords on the bottom here, but then we also have what? We have a hole in the heart, the shape of a bird. And the bird is in her hand. What is she doing here, Andrea? She's letting go of the bird. She's succumbing to the fact that that hole's going to be there, and that's okay. It's okay. And let it go. Something will come along and fill it. It will. And it can't if you don't allow that space to be. So you're going to have to weather the pain of having that wound for a minute. And like we talked about, putting the real you out so that when you do bump into something that can fill that space, you're going to be ready and open to it, okay? And what I'll say to anybody who comes in here, if you need any additional guidance, I'm available to speak about any of the subjects that I read about. Otherwise, I wouldn't read about them. I would tell you that the reading's not going to work, and I would abandon it. And there are resources available to you locally for free. There are spiritual resources available to you to do that work. I'm available with respect to looking at what are they. There's typically 3. It's funny, it's a coincidence, but there's typically 3 circumstances in our lives, depending upon how old you are and depending upon what you've been through. It might be sooner. But there's basically 3 circumstances that occur in our lives up until about our late teens or early 20s. And these become part of our personality. And so we start early in life, and we can locate what that is. And then we move forward to a little bit later on in your life where there's another circumstance that happens with respect to our identities and how we fit in. And there's parts of our personality that are created to cope with that. And then there's a third stage that we talk about as well. So, and this is something I've done with a lot of people. It's very, very powerful. You will never be the same once you meet yourself. And everyone I've ever done that work with has said, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago, right? And it's true. I said the same thing when I went through the work myself. So that said, all I ask of anybody who is not able to donate, and that's okay, because anyone who comes into my stream is entitled to a free personal message, and I do that for even people who I'm not able to get to in the comments of my streams. But there's other work that might be available as well that you need. But if you're not able to donate, all I ask is that you like the video and you consider a comment. The comments are a big deal. They help the channel get noticed. We can help to build this community. I like to think that I approach the cards differently, and I try to use them for what they're meant for, which is not to answer basic questions about our little experience so that in 2 days the event's passed and we've gained nothing. What really I try to do is to use this tool to show us ourselves, so we can get to know who am I really, so that I'm giving myself the things I want, not what my ego wants, not what the world wants for me, not what the person that is feeding off of my energy wants, right? And how do we know that? By meeting ourselves. And so I would offer that to anybody, that work is very powerful, and it's there's no going back once you've woken up. Okay, so AJ, if you happen to pop into this stream, then let me know. You would be next. If not, Artie. Oh, AJ, you are here. Okay, great. Life path, the Chariot and the Tower. Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let me refresh this here because I'm mistook. I'm glad AJ made it back in the room, and Artie, you're next. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to give you the false hope that you were next. I apologize, but I didn't know AJ was still in the room, and I'm going to honor the list as it stood. So the birth cards we're going to leave out of the circumstance here, right? Because and this goes as well. AJ's been in the room a couple times now. I've done readings before, and so I'm just going to okay. Now, life path cards, that's I mean, I guess we can have that discussion maybe even later at a different time on a private level. I'm just curious how that was derived. That's just a personal question, and it's not relevant now. We can talk about it at a different time, but I'm happy to interpret them for you. And so let's just do that. First of all, let's just move all this stuff back from the last reading here. Okay. And let's shut that off. Okay. Chariot and the Tower. Now, you know, there's actually some this may not be a bad reading in general for just with respect to kind of like how to read the tarot. I would be curious too to bounce these cards off another reader and get a sense of how they would read this compared to my interpretation. Basically, there is multiple bodies of knowledge in the tarot. Okay, these. Okay, there we go. Actually, you know what? Let me just get this one last thing so we're not confused. I'm just going to take these out. Okay, so there's three bodies of knowledge in the tarot, and in the this is very common within magical organizations like Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the OTO, the AA, Rosicrucians, Amorc, so on. There's this idea of the three different levels of revealing, right? There's the outer circle, which anyone who pays their dues is entitled to this knowledge, and it's basically lies told openly. The Chariot represents movement and motion. It represents the extension of the will, right? The Tower represents the, babble. I know, whatever. Fine. Now, then inside of that, there's the next stage of knowledge, which is given to the probationers, the people that they paid their dues, but they also have a head on their shoulders and are clearly there for the right reason. They're going to take the work seriously. And they get the truth told in secret. The Chariot represents the will utilized, the will extended. The Chariot represents the idea of taking the action to do what it is that you want to get done, right? But then that can be misinterpreted because it's secret. And so maybe you did the work and you've done some things and you said, okay, here's what it means. And then there's the inner circle, and this is the knowledge that's only available to the it's nepotistic. It's you're chosen whether or not you even get this secret. And here's the meaning of the Chariot. Okay. Here's a secret. If anyone in the room is excited about occult secrets, this was not public information until actually kind of recently. I would say probably within the past 40 years that stuff became mainstream and was like openly spoken about. The Chariot refers to the idea of the difference between the driver, who is the person in the chariot, and the two animals, who are the ones pulling it. Right? There's a connection between you thinking you're in control and the fact that you actually rely on someone to pull that, otherwise that chariot's going nowhere. And so with respect to it being a life path card, what this is referring to is the fact that you need to participate in the process to move, but you're not alone. You also need to enroll others to make that happen. Now, who are those others? Well, it's these two black and white figures in the front. And what does that represent? You. And that's not some kind of philosophical wrangling. There's two yous. There's this, the meat bag, the vehicle that we drive, and then there's the us that animates it. There is the thinker, which is a product of the brain, a physical thing. Thoughts are a manifestation of the body. They belong to the brain. And then there's the observer, which is the real you. We're not the thinker. We're the observer of the thought. Your thoughts are as much yours as my voice in your ears is yours. It's just sound entering your ears. It's just thought entering your mind. But we identify with that, and we think that the thoughts are ours. That's the driver. We do have our own will. It's not like we're floating along like a zombie to our ego. Actually, we are. We have to take the step to not do that, and then we take agency back. Most of the time, we are just being pulled by these two, thinking we're the ones steering, but we're not. The real us is steering. And what does that mean? Who's this real us? Crowley had a word for it. It was called our holy guardian angel. The whole goal of the magic, according to Crowley, was to achieve conversation with your holy guardian angel, meaning that you would actually communicate with your true self, the self that lives at the end of time, that is transcendent, that is infinite and eternal. So it lives at the end of time, waiting for AJ to catch up. AJ doesn't exist. AJ is a word. It's an identity that we maintain, right? You maintain it as self, and I maintain it as you. But it's not true. It's a word that's made up, and your personality is a lie. It's a character that we pretend, and we're pretending that we don't pretend. And I'll pretend that you're not if you pretend I'm not, so that I can be my character too, and that we won't call each other out that we're actually making up the whole thing. I don't talk like this. I'm choosing this voice. I don't look like this. I cut my hair this way. I shave my beard this way. Right? And so we put on a persona every moment, and we decide that persists or not. But there's a truth in that, right? What's that truth? The truth is that means that if we actually stopped pretending, there is a personality that is true and real. That's not the character that we put on. That's not the identity that we persist. And that's the real us. Now, why is that important to know? Because that wants what's best for you. That wants you to be in, forget happy, absolute, ecstatic, blissful pleasure. That's the goal of the real you. Wouldn't you rather go the direction that it wants to go instead of what you think you want because you saw it on TikTok, or because we were manipulated into thinking it through media, or because our friends do it so we should too, or this is what's right according to my subculture, whatever the case may be, whatever identity we perpetuate, right? And so the lesson of the chariot is you steer through deciding whether you give into your base desire, which doesn't give a shit about your happiness. That's your ego be doing its thing. Or do you, in a sense, give up agency to your true self and let it steer? And when you do that, guess what happens? It's like sitting in a river. If you take the wheel, you're swimming against the current. And you may get kind of a little bit further than when you started, but at the end, you know you're going to go wherever that river's going. It's just going to take you longer because you're fighting against it. You may even feel like you're making progress because you move a little bit, but eventually it's going to take you, right? Or you can stop, take a breath, turn around, and swim with it. And now you have the momentum of a river behind you. What is that river? Your true self. and nothing can stop you. You can swim with it, and it's like Superman. You feel like you're swimming a mile a minute. Or you can even, if you get kind of tired, stop and lean back and just kind of carry it, right? And so you won't get there very fast, but you'll get there, and you won't be fighting it. That's the analogy of the chariot. Okay, so I hope that made sense. Let's talk about the tower. It is going to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. So anyone in the room that's been in a car accident knows this moment. You're driving along, minding your own business, and then all of a sudden you come into an event. Anyone who's hit a car head on and has seen the crumbling happen in slow motion as the car crumble, it's like slow motion before your face hits the airbag, right? There's a moment in that where, oh shit, this is going to happen and there's nothing I can do about it, right? Another version of that is, since we're so close actually, and it's actually a good analogy, not to bring up an open wound, 9/11. I live in the United States, and that was a powerful moment when that happened. Actually, that affected the whole planet. That's not an American event. There were people in the top that were higher up than where the plane hit. All right, so here's the building, and the plane hit here, and there were people in that building about 10 stories up that were stuck and could not get down any, right? And they were at 100 stories up in the air, and the plane had crashed and it was burning fuel, and so they had an option. Here's the two options: burn to death or jump. More gruesome, right? And we see that in the card here, right? And this image is 100 years old. You have two options: stay and burn or jump, right? And now, so what the lesson is that it's inevitable. And so it's not about trying to prevent it. It's about preparing for it so that you can weather this situation. So when you come out, whether you've decided to jump or burn, growth can happen. I'm going to pop out a card here. Because there's one last thing numerologically I want to talk about in a sec, but I want to pop another card out here. This is the one right after. All right, just so you don't get hung up on the tower here. It's a scary card. The star is what happens if you've done the work of the chariot. The star is who you are without all the junk. The star is your holy guardian angel. The star is the real you that's at the end of time. The star is the observer. That's what we were talking about. So at the end of the day, the star is your goal, and the tower is the means of getting there. Let me be clear about why that's important, because I don't want you to be afraid of having the tower as your life path. Sometimes change can only come from like serious shit. Somebody that's very important past, something that's very big to you was taken away from you, and now you don't have that, and so you have to rethink things, and suddenly discover a talent that you didn't know you had, or you were forced to due to the great example is that we're in the time of the hermit right now, and so the hermit talks about there's no truth in the light. It can only be seen in the dark. Why is that? Because in the dark you're forced to use something other than your eyes, and so you start to lean on your intuition, right? That's an example. So with the tower, what this is referring to is that buckle up, but be aware of the fact that the reward of that, if you do the work properly, is the star, which is like real you, which is ecstatic, blissful pleasure. No anxiety, no fear, and being connected with yourself to a degree that you can now accept love that comes from the right place. You can accept people for who they are instead of judging. You love them, even the ones that hurt you. So the tower is the vehicle to achieving the star. It's the only way. Everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die to get there. Well, that's how it works. You can't go to heaven without dying, okay? That's the Tower. So now let's wrap these two cards up together. I know that was long-winded, and that was actually shorter than it could have been, because there's a lot more to talk about. However, the Chariot is the 7. So is the Tower. No, it's not. It's 16. Yes, it is the 16th card. 1 plus 6 is 7. That's not an accident. The cards are very similar because they lean to each other. When you've done the work of the Chariot and recognize that you and the drivers are the same under different holographic circumstances, as above, so below, let the above talk first. And when you do that, you're driving into the flames of the Tower on purpose so that you can achieve the star, because you've recognized the only way to do that is through the Tower. Yes, it's scary. That's why we have strength. Acting in spite of fear. Yes, you're going to do it alone. But we can prepare you beforehand. We can gear you up. We can get you motivated. We can tell you what you need to know. But you're going to have to walk through that alone. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. We've all been afraid of this moment. We're all going to be afraid of it when it comes again. But you're going to come out the other end smiling. You're going to come out the other end crying tears of joy that you just met yourself. And you're beautiful. So, and if you could, please email me where you got these two cards. Like, what was the process by which you found your life path cards? I'm just curious. I am a teacher of the tarot, but I'm a student of the tarot, and I'm always looking to learn new techniques, new spreads, new and exciting stuff that I hadn't considered. And so, I would love that. All right, AJ? Okay, so, Artie, guess what, man? If you're still here, it's finally your turn. Jeez. Okay, let's do this. And thank you, everybody who popped back in after my connection dropped. My stream dropped, for those who are new in the room here. My stream dropped, and everybody who popped back in, I really appreciate that. I'm going to be leaving in a little bit here. It's pushing 4 a.m. Actually, it's after 4, and I need to sleep. So, Artie, you're going to be my last reading, and then I want to cover the beautiful soul for the day. And then I'm going to be packing it in. So, but that said, all right, Artie, I forgot your birth card, so I'm going to pop the wheel up and let me know either what your birth card is, or if you can't see it, or if it's difficult for you to locate, just give me the month and day, and then I'll locate it for you, and we'll move forward. And in the meantime, let's see what you're doing here. And hello, Gloria. Oh, why do I keep forgetting that? I don't know why I keep forgetting that we have the same birthday. Certainly not the same year. I got 20-some years on you. Yeah. So, yeah, and again, I'm not going to take you through the personal message since we've done it before. Your birth card's the 10 of Wands. How do I know that? Because it's my birth card. Also, Rita, you're back. I was about to leave, actually, after Artie. I've been on for a little while, and the last stream was on for a little while. Jocelyn, hello. Good to see you again. And I'll say this again, and I do honor this. You'll see in my prior videos. If you put your birthday, month, and day in the comments, I will give you your free reading in the comments. If I'm able to get to it on a live stream. So, okay. And so for Artie, what we're going to do is this. And so this goes for Jocelyn. This goes for Sarita, Gloria. And Gloria, that's, before I even go any further, I just want to speak to Gloria for a moment, okay? If you're still in the room, please say you're here. And if you're not, then I may respond to that in the comments. So, Artie, let's do this. Oh, thank you, AJ, for saying that. No problem. And obviously, you're welcome to pop in on the stream, and we can go even further than that next time. It would be a detriment to myself if I didn't mention that I am available for private readings, right? And we can really get to the heart of any issue you want to talk about during that circumstance. So for Artie here, let's do this. I'm going to use the Spotlight deck for the day. This deck, the Spotlight deck for today, is the Alchemical Tarot of Marseille by Robert M. Place. If you're not familiar with Robert M. Place, shame on you. He is the foremost living authority on the alchemical system of magic and its connection to the tarot. He literally wrote the book on the Neoplatonic symbol system in the tarot, and is an artist and educator. So I have a very good energy from this man, and I love his work. Elsa, how's it going? Been a while. Good to see you. Thank you for popping in. I'm about to leave. But I will be streaming again later in the day tomorrow, and as well as tomorrow evening, and I'll be posting my normal readings on the channel. And so if I can't get to you during today's stream, actually I won't be. I have one more reading today. It's Artie. You can just put your birthday in the comments, and I'm doing the free readings in the comments if I can't get to it in the stream today. Okay. And I'm sorry. I know my stream. I started up a couple hours ago. My internet dropped. I came back on and did another hour or so, but I need to kind of get going here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I know there's several people too that kind of popped in late, and so I apologize. I don't mean to disappoint, but it's just sort of the reality. I have obligations outside of my tarot in the community here that are an important part of my life, and I have to kind of be awake and aware and function for that, and then I can come back and do streams later. And also, anybody who is interested certainly can book a private reading with me, and we could meet as early as 10 a.m. my time, which would be basically in 6.5 hours. If you're not in the United States or not in my time zone, I'm in EST, which is minus 5.5 Greenwich Mean. Okay, I'm minus 5.5. So, like, for instance, my last private reading was in Sri Lanka, which wound up to be 6. I forget what we figured out. 9 ahead of me. So that would be 7 p.m. Right? But it just depends upon where you are, Elsa. Okay, so Artie, the 4 of Cups is the card of cynicism. It's the card of let me pop up the Rider-Waite so you can have a reference as well. The Marseille is sometimes hard for people to read because it's very pip based, like, oh, here's 4 suits and an elephant. What the heck does that mean? And I find that people are very familiar with the Rider system, and so just for the sake of that, I'll pop it up. Although it is worth figuring out and determining what that elephant means, right? So, but let's look at the Rider version of that. Okay, and so now this person has there's an attitude about them. Let's put there you go. Their arms are crossed like Harumph. right? They're not in a state of meditation. A state of meditation would be a little different state where there's kind of like a peace about them, and their hands wouldn't be crossed like this, right? I mean, obviously breath is an important part of that process, you know, having a centered state. Although, you know, I've always found comfort in kind of leaning down on a hill and straight up. I find that comfortable. But the lesson here is that cynicism, meaning that you're looking at these other cups while this other one is being offered, and you're like, forget that. It's just going to stink like the rest of these. Why would it be any different? That's the kind of the attitude of cynicism there. Or another way that this card can be interpreted is disdain for your environment. You know, which I would say a lot of us are feeling right now. Politically, there's a lot of division. Probably less than we think. You know, a lot of it is just propaganda, echo chamber, trying to make us all hate each other. Misery loves company. There's probably less division than we think, but it's still, there seems to be a lot of hate in the world, a lot of judging and division and all this. And you know, a lot of us kind of have this cynical attitude. Nothing's going to change, you know. The lesson in the Four of Cups is don't miss the truth because you're focused on all the other lies. Don't give the new guy the black eye for the last one that cheated on you, right? Like, that's not fair. Or don't judge the next boss because your last boss was a butthole. You know, it's like, recognize that every situation that you enter is, even though some things have happened in the past, a new situation. The past is what it is, but does not guarantee the future. The future is not written. Now, you know, there's another side of that too, right? And we've all heard the saying that insanity, the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But this refers to not actions you're taking. This refers to your emotional reaction to the world around you, and that is put you in a state of kind of feeling cynical, like kind of feeling kind of angry at the world, like running out of fucks to give. And the reason that that's happening is because of what you've seen, what you've experienced, you know, and so it's not our faults. Wow. Okay, so, all right, let me pop this out of the way here. Oh, actually, let's use it while it's here. We might as well. Okay. The Seven of Pentacles shows this, because, again, it's not clear here. It really just looks like a bunch of coins, and so what are you looking at? And I am going to do a spotlight and go through these cards at some point in the near future that's a little more in-depth, and so you'll see that the symbolism is actually very good. It's just not apparent to the untrained. So this person is sitting there right now. This isn't lazy. This is uninspired. This person is working below their abilities, right? This person could be doing more in their life, and they're stuck raking leaves. Not that there's any shame in raking leaves if you do it with pride. But more importantly, this person here is not happy. And why are they not happy? Because they're not motivated, and so they're not acting. They're not as far in life as they feel like they could be. And part of that is because they're working below their means. Now, why is that? Usually out of fear. Somebody who should be a manager but won't apply for the management position. Somebody that could run the joint, but they're stuck doing a lower level position because they don't have the confidence to apply. Why? The Four. You've set your mind, this is what it is, no one's going to change it. Like, God could hand you a cup with the truth and you won't take it because it's going to taste like the rest, right? Well, lack of focus is an important dynamic of this Four of Cups because it is the idea of being distracted by your disdain, like being distracted by your pre-assumption. You think you know how it's going to end, and so there's no reason to, right? Why would I study for a test I know I'm going to fail? Or, wow, this is really hard. Maybe I want to do this instead for a minute, and then you get sucked in. But also, there's a warning in the Seven of Pentacles here. The warning of the Seven of Pentacles is that you need to be able to find the strength to work through the lack of motivation. Another way to put that is that although distraction will come, don't let it stop you from seeing the truth that's being offered, the opportunity that's in front of you. And so with respect to this, like not focusing on study is an example where I had this problem as a child. I was reading disabled, and I could read a paragraph 4 times and it would not click. And it turned out it had actually a lot to do with focus. What I was doing was going to a different place. I had to kind of teach myself how to read. I'm actually very good at reader. I don't have a reading disability. I just read differently than I thought. And I was acting in a way that was not consistent with the way I read. And so it was hard for me. But once I learned the right way, I actually read very quick. I retain a lot of what I read. I can read, Well, the divorce is definitely going to affect and fuel this 4. And I've been there, and I'm sorry, man. It's not fun, right? I've been there recently. Wow. Yeah, that's a toughie. So I can see why you're cynical, right? Each one of those cups is an experience where you've been burned, and so you're like, yeah, fuck this next cup. It's just going to be like the last one. But that's not true. And now what's this thing that's keeping you sad to the point that you're not... The Tao teaches us something profound. The Tao says, whether you're going up or down the ladder, your position is the same because it remains shaky. But when you're on the ground on your own 2 feet, you'll never lose your balance. So that's one argument for, trying to climb the ladder, so to speak. In this case, like for an example, seeking that balance as opposed to standing on your ground and not seeking, but saying, no, you know what, I'm going to find the strength to motivate myself. I'm not going to judge the future based on the past. It seems it's some of the things what we need to be talking about, rather, is a little out of the scope of a free reading. But I'll complete it. The final card is the Ace of Cups. Now, this particular deck, since he's combined it with the alchemical process, thus, man is a being partially divine and partially mortal. Right? You're both. The body wants, the soul wants something else. Loss, like a divorce as an example. I cried so hard I choked. Like I couldn't even breathe. I couldn't speak. I have 3 daughters. So I understand. I guess the best way, let me do it with these to really illustrate the point here, okay? You deserve better. The divorce is good. The place that you are in that got you to the divorce is not going to change unless you do. What needs to be worked on here is the 7. And with respect to love, this isn't in your career or your parenting or your relationships with friends or anything like that. This is with respect to love. You're shooting too low. Aim higher. Don't be afraid of hearing no just because you think that he's out of your league or she's too good for me. It's nonsense. And obviously now is not the time. Something's being offered to you from divine. That cup is not just like a person handing you a cup. Like, oh, you're single? Well, I can fill your heart up. How you doing? You know, that's not what that cup is. This cup is from divine. This cup is like truth. It's like actual love. The kind that can be fulfilled. The kind you can only get from two places. Your God and yourself. Right? If you want to know what the love of God feels like, it's the first time your kid said, I love you, without being asked. Man, I don't know anyone who has kids. Nothing in the world feels better than when your little one looks up at you and says, I love you. And you're like, wow, I didn't say anything. You know, you can say I love you to your kid and they'll say I love you back, right? And that's how they learn to talk. My daughters, the first time my oldest, my baby, said the words I love you to me, and I didn't ask her or say anything to her, and I looked at her and I saw the look in her face that it was like real. That was the first time in my life that I knew what love was. I actually knew what it was. And up until then, it was mostly just like ego and lust and like me unaware of how wrong I was about that emotion. That was love. So there's some work that needs to be done here with respect to you getting over this, whatever it is that's caused you to aim low in respect to love, to work beneath your capability. It's an emotional insecurity that you need to get over. And the future is not written, is not based on the past. That's not true. So some things can happen to erase some of the stuff that's led you to the place that you're in now and turn this 7 into the 8, which is somebody who is, and let's pop that 8 up for clarification here. The 8 is somebody who is busy creating, is in a position of actually being popular because the work is now good because it's not, yes, the next chapter. The work is now good because it's not based on trying to give one person what you think they want, and instead it's you being true to yourself and creating what it is you create. Like it or not, here's what I make. And what happens is you attract people who like that. And so instead of saying, oh, well, you want, you know, orange cranberry cake, cool, but you don't make cake. You're a cookie person. So you make the cake. It's not great. Stop doing that. What you're doing is you're attracting people who eat cake when you make cookies. All right? Start making cookies again. And when you do, the cake guy is going to go, shit, I don't like cookies. You're supposed to make me cake. And you get to say, sorry, man, I'm out of the cake making business. And see that line of people over there? They're banging my door down for my cookies. See ya. And so finally you're yourself, right? That's the 8. And that's the reward of you doing the work to get out of this state. This person said, man, I'm tired of not being happy. I'm tired of not being happy. What do I have to do? Very simple. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, and it's this easy. Figure out who you are and show that to the world. Militant at all costs. Be that instead of what the world wants you to be, what you think the world wants you to be. And the side effect of that is happiness. And what comes from that, ultimately, is the period of time that we're in right now, which is bliss. It's ecstasy. It's the 9. It's what comes after this work is done properly. It doesn't suffer because you've gotten busy and popular suddenly. You don't get full of yourself. When you start putting you out, you're going to be powerful and sexy and confident. Don't get too into yourself. Stay balanced. But what you'll wind up doing is finding this place of like feeling good, and you'll be gone of this anxiety that's been holding you back and keeping you aiming low in life, right? So that's what I have to say about that. Where is the Hermit? Okay, great. All right, so that's the gist. I hope that was insightful. Let's put up the world as the card here, the placeholder in the meantime. Okay. Because the world is who we all are once we've done the work. That's right, we all turn into nude women floating in space. No, but really, what this is the perfected being. This is the person that is devoid of all of that and has found her mastery. She's found her real self and recognized that what it is not even a body. It's not even a person. You're an infinite being of light that always was and always will be, and we're through this linear time fooled into thinking that we are our bodies, but we're not. Our body is just another piece of this physical reality, and we're just observing it. And this is the person that is nothing but the observation, just the observer, just the point of perception. So there's a couple of things that we were speaking about today in the stream that kind of got knocked off when that stream dropped. And there's one subject in particular that I want to mention. I instead of doing news and related topics, I've decided to start a new segment that I call The Beautiful Soul, because the reality is that there's a lot of yucky in the world. Thank you so much, Artie. And again, pop in next time and remind me that I forgot that we have the same birthday, so I can remember your birth card, and we can even look a little further. And if you'd like to talk on a very more specific level that's a little more out of the scope of a free reading on the internet, we can do a more personal thing, and I'm available. Usually it's just starting after 10 a.m. Eastern to go over that. I do have to squeeze in a couple hours of sleep a day, but otherwise. So the beautiful soul for today came to me in such a strange and interesting way. I talked about today the Spotlight deck, which is created by a gentleman named Robert Place. What does this have to do with the beautiful soul of the day? It's all going to make sense. He created the Alchemical Tarot, which is a tarot deck that was very popular late 80s, I believe. I don't know. I didn't get my hands on one until much later, but and he is the foremost living authority on the alchemical process with respect to the tarot. Wrote the book on Neoplatonistic symbolism, and is a prolific communicator of tarot knowledge with respect to the alchemical process, Lenormand, and non-Golden Dawn-based tarot systems. He's also, incidentally, full disclosure, I've never met the man. We communicated very briefly on a project that happened years ago related to the person that is the beautiful soul of the day. And so, and he happens to incidentally live locally here. He's like within this subculture, within the space of spirituality and specifically tarot, he's a famous, and the alchemical tarot is what he's most known for, right? At least mainstream, what he's most known for. So what does it have to do with the beautiful soul? Well, the person that I want to talk about today was someone very special to me personally, and to a lot of people here in upstate New York. His name was John Nelson. A lot of people knew him as Jack. I knew him as friend. I have a picture here that I took, which I thought I would share with the stream. And no, it's not a joke of a priest and a rabbi and a Buddhist walk into a bar. What we're actually looking at here is a church. Do I have a picture of the church? I don't know if I do. I'm not sure. I don't think so. The church is a Gothic style church on a mount in Woodstock. It's quite beautiful, and right next to it is a Buddhist temple. And there's this really interesting. I was up there with Father John and Vladika, who's this gentleman on the far left here with this assuming-looking garb and this big medallion and whatnot. And he's the leader of the Western Orthodox Catholic Church in North America. Great conversation, as you can imagine. And Father John on the right-hand side here, who is was an aspiring priest, although he was a shaman. Sorry, God bless you, John. I know that you were a very responsible steward to that church, and you have a beautiful voice when you sang the prayers. But you and I both know that you were not Catholic. Who are you kidding? You were a light of love. And this image is an example of that. I caught them talking and said, I want to grab a picture. And so we have the leader of the Western Orthodox Church, a Buddhist, and a shaman all in this picture, right? Sorry to insult anybody who knew Father John as a Catholic priest. He didn't limit his love in that way. And now, one of his main, many projects related to justice and to peace was the Native American movement. And there was a very specific event that took place a number of years ago related to a tragedy that happened, and this ritual that occurs every year that's very powerful. And he was adamant about allowing that to happen in this certain way to let these people honor their tradition. And anyway, long story short, it became something through this Live Peace International that he created, and some others that are involved as well. And it's evolved over time. He passed away a couple years ago, Father John, and he's the organization has obviously changed hands, and I don't even know if it's around any longer. But way back when this first started, he wanted a logo developed, and I was doing some graphic design stuff. Like I was doing basically brochure work for him on as a favor, and to support the work. And he needed a logo, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I have this buddy of mine. He's an artist, and he was going to do a logo for me." And I said, "Great. So just have him send the artwork over, and I'll incorporate it in the brochures." And so I get an email from Robert M. Place with this image. That's Robert, by the way. And basically the email said, "Hey, yeah, the image is too big. I can't email it to you." This was back in the day before you could email large attachments. So here's a link to the to the cloud drive, basically. Like it was a link to a file sharing service that I can pull it down, the raw vector file. So, and I'm like, yeah, great, thanks. So I get and then I'm like, oh, cool. What font did you use? Whatever the case. And so we just kind of went back and forth a little bit, and it was really it was work stuff. Like, it was creative brief. So long story short, bang bang, got it done. He polished up a change that Father John asked for, and I incorporated it into the brochures and whatever the case, and the event took place, and it was a success. That said, though, I wanted to point out a couple of things here. First of all, Father John, you want to talk about a beautiful soul. He walked the talk. He lived in a shack. And anytime he had $1, he would give 75 cents of it away. He used any way possible to get to the heart of an individual on a one-on-one basis, but was also an activist that loved human beings so much. I mean, he would walk through the fire with you. And anyone who knew him would say the same thing. And he was also this steward of this church that incidentally wound up right next door to that Buddhist temple. And so it's this beautiful space of love and peace on that mountain. And anyone who knew Father John would know that he was the perfect person to be the steward. And, all of us are a little worried about what will happen now that he's gone, and who's going to protect the church, who's going to protect the historical value of that building. But that said, Robert also did something very special. I want to be clear about who this man is, Robert Place. This is the foremost authority on a subject that is important to a lot of people. I can't afford his seminars. I've never been able to see him because I can't afford to go see him. I don't own his book on Neoplatonistic because I can't afford it. This man is sought after for his work, and he did this at no charge to do Pastor John a favor. That's like Dolly drawing a logo for a friend, but he put work into it, and he gave, and it's Robert. He could have gone, here's a little something, whatever, yeah, my buddy Jack, Jack. And instead, he delivered a piece of work. I don't know if anybody's seen this since then. It's a I don't have the original. I don't know who owns the original. I don't have right to the original. Obviously, I was just the designer on the a couple of pieces of work there. But now, if you look at the Alchemical Tarot or any of his work, and you look at that logo, it's clear as crystal that, oh yeah, that's Robert Place, man. And this guy, who could have charged whatever he wanted for that piece. Think about the next logo for Apple computers. That guy charged $100,000 for a freaking box of ends. Come on. Anyway, so long story short, both of these people qualify for this, and both of them are coming from a place of love, right? Father John is coming from this place of reminding everybody that it doesn't matter who your God is as long as you have one, and if you don't, perpetuate peace anyway, because it's in our best interest. And Robert, who is this consummate communicator of knowledge, not only is he an artist and a very savvy businessman and a very good teacher. I've seen a lot of his stuff on YouTube. There is a compulsion to share this, right? I mean, why else is he doing so many decks? Because he's driven to get the point across. He wants you to know it, and so he strives as hard as he can to tell that story 17 different ways so that you'll get it. The Sevenfold Mystery, the Alchemical Tarot, the Alchemical Marseille, he's got some other stuff, the Magnum Opus, which is this iconic version that he did, which I'm not even going to show you yet, but you can look it up, spoiler if you want, but I'm going to show it on the stream here at a different time. And there's a link in the description to Robert's website. If you are interested in any of his work, including his tarot, his books, buy it from him. Don't buy it from Amazon or one of these other, if you can. If you're overseas or don't have access, do what you have to. But if you can, please support the man directly by going to his website to buy any products. The link in the description is not an Amazon link or an affiliate link. I earn nothing. I don't know him. We've never spoken in person, and so we had one phone call and a couple of emails. He has no idea who I am, but I know who he is. He's had a very major impact on my life for decades, using his thinking. So, thank you for being the giant on which the shoulders I stand. I can understand this art better. and to Father John for being that giant for my spirit and for so many others. And this image is such a reminder of what this is all about. At the end of the day, we're all the same. It doesn't matter what God you worship as long as you have one. Believe in something. And even if you believe in nothing, at least believe in yourself. And so that is the beautiful soul for today. It's just a reminder that we all have the power and the ability to do that. I pulled out the Hermit card because it reminded me of Father John. Right? And how do you not look at the Hermit and look at Father John and not see the same person, you know? And there's something he wrote that I want to finish on here that is it's kind of the mission statement that he developed for this Live Peace International movement that he was developing in toward the end of his life. I'm going to pop it up on screen and then read it. And then that will be the end of the stream for tonight. So thank you to everybody who joined. I'll see you tomorrow and for the stream. And I put 4 videos up. They're up on the channel right now. Go check them out. Please, if you see any value in what I do here, comment. It makes a big difference. Give the video a like and please comment. Okay? And so I'm going to leave you with the words of John Nelson. And have a good night. In our ever-changing world of incredible natural wonders and seemingly timeless beauty, we all have been given a chance to share in the splendor of the vast physical and spiritual realms. We are all here as caregivers to this place we call home, and it remains our joy to continue in the spirit of cooperation with all living things. And in this spirit, we invite every person to participate in a planet-wide initiative promoting a renewable, sustainable consciousness of peace. Let us all walk in peace as one unified force for a more tranquil planet. Thank you for joining. I'll see you tomorrow.